Kia ora and welcome to Beer Jerk Beer Club Drink Along. I'm Joe.
I'm Luke.
And this is Big Sur, a California IPA by Urbanaut.
California IPA, eh?
Yeah, California IPA, also known as West Coast IPA, also known as Right IPA, also known as IPA.
Words mean nothing these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there is a difference between California IPA and West Coast IPA.
California is on the West Coast.
Yeah.
If I think of the difference between California and, say, Oregon, further up the West Coast, it might be surf versus mountain, beach versus pine. So maybe California IPA is sort of a lighter malt body and pulling a little more citrus out of the hops versus pine. If that would be my interpretation of why it would be named differently.
Maybe the California takes wearing short shorts and bikini up top.
Eating sushi versus hunting in the wilderness, maybe, I don't know.
So yeah, as far as I know, it's pretty much the same style. But yeah, as we often say, words are meaningless, styles are fluid. What matters is how good the liquid in the glass is.
And this is hopped with Simcoe and Cascade, so two very classic West Coast IPA hops.
Yep.
Both known for their big sort of meaty, grapefruity, piney character.
It's bred up in Washington State in Oregon, and which is the sort of heartland and the birthplace of so many of these wonderful modern American hops. And Big Sur, as you mentioned about California, I was just thinking about Big Sur by the Beach Boys and I don't know if you listened to that Thrills album. Maybe we'll do that at the music match this week.
The Thrills? Or?
Yeah, the Thrills. The group of Irish lads that pretended they were the Beach Boys, but it all sounded amazing. They did a song called Don't Go Back to Big Sur. Well, it was pretty huge back around 2004 maybe.
Okay.
So Big Sur is the area of starts off the beach and cliffs and wonderful ocean landscapes. With Urbanaut, they always name their beers after neighbourhoods and suburbs and regions. So Big Sur, pretty iconic place to name a pretty fantastic beer after.
Yeah, I guess an iconic style of beer, the sort of craft beer, isn't it? And a great example of it.
Yeah, and so these modern IPAs that we all love so much here in New Zealand and in the whole world, that's their birthplace, California. It's where they all came about. Just these wonderful breweries like Stone and Alesmith and
Sierra Nevada?
Yeah, totally. And Dogfish Head.
I think San Diego is.
Yeah. And there's just this whole explosion of wonderful craft breweries that took what was happening with real ale and English bitters and pale ales and just really elevated them to the nth degree by hopping the shit out of them, making them boozier, but also most importantly by breeding new varieties of hops that just gave you completely new profiles and new flavours. And as we often do chat about, that's the wonderful thing about here in New Zealand. A similar sort of thing is happening 2 or 3 decades later. Just the innovation that's happening with our New Zealand hop growers and the varieties that are coming out regularly. It's pretty astonishing looking at what's grown in the last 10 years or so. But anyway, we're not talking about New Zealand hops, we're talking about American hops. And America. So what are you saying? Sushi rolls? California rolls?
Yeah, California rolls are those sushi rolls with the avocado.
Yeah.
And then there's the California burritos, obviously bordering Mexico, so a big influence on the cuisine there.
What is a California burrito?
I think it's a burrito with like rice and steak and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm not too clued up on the history of Mexican food, but maybe burritos aren't actually a Mexican food. Or I'm making that up.
Oh, that's a big thing to put on YouTube. Oh my god, getting cancelled.
Because there's a lot of the wraps and stuff, but that's enchiladas and things like that. So yeah. California burrito, a lot of guac, steak, those kind of things. Yeah. Surfer food.
Yeah, cool vibes, hanging five.
Yeah.
And Urbanaut are just down the road from us on the Auckland Beer Mile. So we see those guys pretty often. They do fantastic burgers at their place. You can go and visit them and grab a beer and a burger. Good American style combo. And yeah, just really lovely bunch of people. In fact, when they were looking to grow beer jerky, we needed a bit more space, and I was walking past this empty warehouse building that some blokes were just doing some work on. It used to be a props hire store. I think it was Hollywood Props. And I noticed some guys were doing work in there, and I went in there to ask if we could maybe rent a bit of storage space to store our beer in for beer jerk. And it was Simon from Urbanaut. He thought, oh, we're a brewery that's under construction, and so we actually shared a space with them for a year or so before we moved up the road here. So yeah, good guys. They recently lent us their hand labelling machine for a Small Gods brew, Tuna, which we had some issues with getting it labelled. So me and Joe hand labelled each one of those in the back of the tap room here. So big shout out to Bruce for lending us that lovely kit. But yeah, really fantastic bunch of people at Urbanaut, so definitely give them a visit, which you undoubtedly will be after drinking this delicious IPA, which is lower in alcohol than IPAs used to be.
Is it 5.8, 5.9?
It's 5.9.
Yeah, IPA used to pretty much all be above 7, didn't they?
Yeah, well, these American IPAs, certainly. Yeah, it definitely is a big trend that we've seen here in New Zealand in the past year, I'd say.
Yeah.
I know it's a big trend in Britain more recently, linked to taxes.
Yeah, if you can get in below 6, I think you pay a lot less tax in the UK. It's 6 and 8, I think, are the two kind of cut-offs.
And it's the same in New Zealand, that brewers pay duty on precisely how much alcohol is in the finished product. So it is more affordable to sell beer that's 5.9% than 7.9%. And I think that's a bit of a reflection on just huge increases in the cost of brewing, and people not having much money, and like drinkers just not being able or not being willing to bear increased cost prices. The cost of it hasn't really gone up in years.
No, not to the consumer.
Yeah, precisely.
When I first started buying beer professionally, I was paying a lot less than I am now for the same quality and the same ABV and all of that. But yeah, it would be an amazing thing if maybe a small business focused government could allow some excise relief. So the big guys, they probably pay 99% of the excise anyway. And yeah, maybe your first 100,000 litres or something like that, you don't pay excise. Because that would really offer these businesses the ability to sort of bring their costs down. And it's only as you start growing and producing millions or hundreds of millions of litres in the case of line and DB, that you actually are paying $35 per litre you produce. It would be phenomenal because it has worked in places like the UK. Some producers, even Australia, I think, has some breaks on it. So yeah, it would be an amazing thing to see in New Zealand. It would really help the vibrancy of our beer scene, although despite it all, we still have one of the best beer scenes in the world, so can't complain too much.
And also, it's not as though it's like a charitable thing to help out the little guy. Like, small businesses employ way more people.
Yeah.
So all these small breweries, they don't have the efficiencies of scale. So if you look at how many, there was a great report out of Australia about 2 or 3 years ago, and they spoke about, for small breweries, they employed, I think it was 8 times as many people as large breweries per litre of beer brewed. Just because you have a huge brewery and they just have one accountant. And then you have like a little brewery, they have an accountant, or an accountant doing 18 hours a week. So just all these, it's just fantastic for the job market, and so much taxes paid and employment, and so there's good reasons to actually support small businesses. Not least for the bloody vibrancy, because if there was a duopoly of Lime DB, we just have 2 beers to drink. It would just be DB Draft and Lime Red.
PwC would do all the accounting for both, and Main Freight would do all the logistics for both, and there'd be only a handful of jobs for New Zealanders, despite this thing we all consume being produced.
And it is happening. We are seeing a swing. There are going to be more breweries closed. We are going to see more from the supermarket duopoly putting pressure on breweries, and us drinkers are going to see much less variety. It's started to happen already. One of the big supermarkets has declared that they're going to be ranging fewer beers, and of course they are. They don't care. about having 200 beers on display, because if you have 20 beers on display, they sell the same volume.
Yeah.
Drinkers are already in the supermarket. They're there to buy their shopping and 4 cans of beer. So if they've only got 20 to pick from or 200 to pick from, they're still going home with 4 cans of beer in the trolley.
Yeah, we're New Zealand is often 3-4 years behind international trends, and I think the trend we saw in the UK when I was there, happening sort of before I left, was that a lot of breweries were struggling because Tesco gave them a contract, and this is not fact, it's not libel, it's not anything like that, but yeah, basically the vibe was they got these contracts, they committed a lot of their tank space to these supermarkets, and then the supermarket said, oh, that price doesn't really work for us anymore. And they, they had the staff, they had the contracts with their ingredient suppliers to produce this much beer.
Yeah.
They needed to sell it, so they were kind of squeezed into selling it for a lower price, and then the quality lowered, and everyone lost except the supermarket, which is kind of what we see in New Zealand in terms of food and beverage, but that's a...
Well, we saw a little example of it this year with the New World Beer and Cider Awards. To enter the New World Beer and Cider Awards, brewers have to commit to brewing X volume of beer, but the supermarkets don't commit to buying the beer. So we were chatting to various breweries and said, oh guys, we've got an excess of this beer. It did really well in the awards, but the supermarket hasn't bought much of it, so we've got loads extra. And we've labelled it up with like New World stickers on, and we're like, well, we don't really want fucking New World stickers on cans of beer that we're selling at Beer Jerk. But yes, of course we'll buy some stock. What we can afford to, what we can sell. So anyway, that is a bit of a rant, bit of an offshoot.
Don't support Urbanaut.
What?
Cut that. Don't support the supermarkets, support Beer Jerk and Urbanaut. And all the other fantastic independent breweries and retailers in New Zealand.
Well, there aren't many independent retailers because it's an awful business, because our markup is the same as supermarkets. So that's the reason why these independent beer shops open and then close immediately afterwards. So there's just a few of us tenacious people sticking around. So yeah, if you are going to buy beer from us, from the few independent retailers that you happen to see around, and also from the breweries directly. As I rant over. And finishing up on lower ABV IPAs, it was interesting, the rebrand of Chur from Behemoth. So Chur, their core range pale ale, an amazing pale ale, got rebranded to Chur IPA, and it's gone up 0.1% in ABV.
Oh, wow.
So it's changed from pale ale to an IPA. And they have tweaked the recipe, it's a different beer. But yeah, it is interesting seeing all of these 4.8% IPAs, which I think breweries they'd have had a hard time releasing them 2 years ago, but a lot of them do taste delicious, and also people want to have a few beers, so it's kind of nice that it can be slightly lower ABV, and as we're seeing here, this is a lovely example of an IPA that is sub 6%.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe a slight sort of lower sweetness, lower body than big sort of 7+ IPAs, but certainly no detriment to the overall drinking experience or the flavour.
Yeah, excellent beer.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to our TED Talk on big beer and small beer. Cheers to Urbanaut, fantastic beer as always, and we will see you next time for Beer Club. Cheers.
Cheers.